You just survived a horrific roller coaster accident, and now death is hunting you down. There's no way to escape it, and it won't stop its murderous rampage until every single survivor is brutally killed. Anything could be a murder weapon or a death trap, and you'll have to do the most savage things if you want to survive. When you know how you're going to die and nothing can stop it, what do? I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat Final Destination 3. This is the deadliest place in America. These high schoolers are having fun at an amusement park, and Wendy here is capturing the last moments of their senior year before graduation. The girl checks her camera to see how the photos are coming out and notices something weird. In the picture, the sign reads "High Die," but when she looks back up, the light is still on. She can feel that something is off, but has no idea that she's just seen a premonition of her own future. Going around the theme park, she takes photos of her other classmates playing carnival games. These two girls are having fun at the water gun shootout, and Lewis here is killing it at the strongman. But the girl can't shake the feeling that with every photo, a bad omen is following them. Her friends get in line for the Devil's Flight roller coaster, and Wendy here starts to get nervous. Her boyfriend reassures her nothing bad is going to happen and convinces her to rejoin the group. But as they walk in, she feels like her life is in danger. They reach the platform, and this girl is surrounded by signs of death. But when she finds out they're assigned to the front seat, she panics, begging her friends to all sit in the back. Nobody wants to join her, but they decide to settle this fairly and toss a coin. Kevin here loses the flip and gets stuck with Wendy to sit in the back. Okay, normally roller coasters are incredibly safe, and statistically, you have a 1 in 750 million chance of dying on a ride. Having said that, this is not a normal roller coaster, and there were signs to tell us we shouldn't get on. The first clue was the missing letter in the photo spelling the word die. When she was in line, the pillars that hold the ride together were shaking loose and looked very unstable. When she approaches the cars, she walks up to gate 6. This guy cuts in front of them and tries to steal their seats, but that makes 3 people at the gate, and 3 6s is the number of the beast. They move further back, but their seats are stolen by a bunch of underage kids who aren't even allowed to be here. These all might seem innocent, but with this many strange coincidences, I would start taking my superstitions a little more seriously. Now, even though an accident is statistically rare, that doesn't mean it couldn't happen to you. For over a decade, Action Park in Vernon, New Jersey was the most dangerous amusement park in US history, with regular injuries and even tragic deaths from their rides, and nearly all were a result of poor safety standards and maintenance. With that in mind, this girl is right to be concerned. She's being peer pressured into doing something she doesn't feel safe with, and honestly, there's no shame in telling your friends you're going to sit this one out. It might just be the smartest thing you'll ever do. They get in the car and the restraints come down, trapping them all in, as the operator pushes start and the roller coaster begins to take off. But none of them know that hydraulic fluid is leaking out of the cars. The ride picks up speed, racing down the tracks, but when they reach the loop, everything starts to go wrong. This guy's video camera gets knocked out of his hand and falls through the air, but gets caught on the track below. The roller coaster train drives over it, breaking the hydraulics and turning their screams of joy into absolute fear. The restraints suddenly unlock, and they hold on for dear life as the cars go through another loop. The wheels fly off their axles, and the front car gets unhitched, sending the riders tumbling to their deaths. This kid falls out of his seat and manages to catch the side rail as the ride goes through a corkscrew. He loses his grip and flies into the support beam where he breaks in half and dies. But it's not over for them yet as a piece of the car slams into the ride and dislodges the tracks. Riding over the broken rail, they go up another loop and stop as they reach the top of the spiral. They hold on for as long as they can, but these two lose their grip and plummet to their deaths, leaving Wendy and Kevin here as the only 2 passengers left. Okay, if they were looking for a thrill, they've definitely gotten their money's worth. Despite all odds, they actually have a chance here to save themselves before they end up like their friends. Since the crash has caused the ride to lose its momentum, the cars on the roller coaster are heavy enough to stabilize them in position. Since they are already stuck in place, small movements won't be enough to give it momentum to fall back down the tracks. Now fortunately, these shoulder straps here are still strong enough to hold their full weight, so instead of hanging from them, we should stand on them with our feet and turn ourselves upright. Once we're standing the right way up, I would try to climb over the car and onto the rails of the roller coaster, because we can wait there to be rescued. But as long as we're hanging upside down in our seats, we have no control over what happens. I would try to take off my jacket and wrap it around the wheels in a figure 8, tying the roller coaster down to the tracks. It might seem small, but it's going to make a huge difference, because there's no momentum here to push the cars forward, so the whole thing could easily be stabilized by my jacket because the wheels wouldn't be able to start moving enough to gain inertia. Working together, they rock the train back and forth until they finally come loose. But Kevin can't get back in his seat in time and gets torn in half by a pole, leaving Wendy here the last person alive. As the train hits the loose rail, she's thrown out of her seat and falls headfirst onto the tracks below, but she doesn't die. Wendy here suddenly finds herself in tears, sitting back in the car moments before the ride will take off. Realizing what's about to happen, she screams at the technicians not to push the button. Security steps out to see what's going on, and they let her out of the car. She's having a total breakdown and tells them she had a vision where all the riders died in a horrible accident, but nobody believes her. Lewis here is upset that she's interrupted the ride and thinks this is just a desperate attempt to get attention. Kevin here steps up to defend her, and they get into a fight as others nearby join in. The security manages to break it up and throws them all off the ride, leaving her boyfriend here stuck in his seat. Okay, this is some serious voodoo magic. There's no doubt in my mind that what we just saw was a real experience and not a vision, and to save all the passengers here, we need to find a way to completely close down the ride, but you won't get that done by telling them that you saw it all in your head. These guys are just going to think you're high and escort you off the premises. We need to lie through our teeth and say anything necessary even if it gets us in trouble, because otherwise 17 people will get killed. I would tell them that I personally sabotaged the ride and wanted to die on the roller coaster, but I couldn't go through with it. Nobody in their right mind would let another train onto the tracks if a threat has been made, and any responsible ride operator would take this threat seriously. They would bring in the security as well as the police, and the ride would be forced to close until it was properly investigated. Now, when they question her, they will quickly find out that she doesn't know a damn thing about roller coaster mechanics, and the threat will be dismissed. But this is something I can live with, because as long as me and my friends are not on that ride, we've done our job. Still in shock, Wendy walks towards the exit when she suddenly realizes that her boyfriend is still stuck on the ride. He begs to be let out, but the other passengers start chanting to continue, and the train leaves the station. Wendy here runs back onto the platform and yells at them to stop, but the security jumps on her and she's forced outside. They're startled when they hear people screaming above and look up to see the passengers falling to their deaths. She's devastated by the accident, but she has no idea that this is only the beginning. Okay, this girl had one last chance to save her boyfriend and she blew it. She's the only person here who knows for a fact that everyone on the ride is about to die, so if she doesn't do everything in her power to intervene, it will be 100% her fault. Personally, if I knew what was about to happen, I would shove this guy out of the way and push the stop button. If all you're willing to do is shout at your boyfriend before he dies, then you don't deserve him. Days later, the girl is at school to pick up her diploma and clean out her locker, but she's still tormented by everything that happened. Outside, Kevin catches up to talk with her, but she's in no mood to speak with anyone and gets in the car. He can do nothing to cheer her up, but before she leaves, Kevin admits that he's been looking for answers and has found them. 6 years ago, a class of students were on a trip to Paris when one kid had a vision that the plane was going to blow up. He and his friends were thrown out, and just like her vision of the roller coaster, it all came true. The plane exploded, and months later, they all began dying in freak accidents. She doesn't believe him and drives away, but she'll soon find out that they're both already a part of Death's new plan. Okay, this girl should not be so glib about his research, because right now, he's showing more initiative at finding answers than she is. After what she's been through, any theory, no matter how crazy, needs to be considered, because these events have happened before, and there are plenty of records on these freak accidents. If she took the science seriously enough to research, she would realize death has 5 main rules. Number 1, death kills people in the order they would have died in the premonitions. Number 2, if you save someone's life, death will skip to the next person in the kill order. Number 3, death leaves clues for the survivors to figure out how they're going to die. Number 4, death will not allow you to kill yourself, and you can't die until it's your turn. Number 5, you can only escape death's design by creating a new life. This is a goldmine of information, and if it were me, I would be trying to learn as many lessons as possible from these past cases, because if all this is true, then 10 people are about to die. Later that day, these 2 Valley girls walk into the tanning salon to bronze their skin for graduation. The receptionist is in a rush and leaves to answer a phone call, using a bottle of lotion as a door jamb, not knowing that this one act will set 2 more deaths into motion. The girls walk into a tanning room and the blonde puts her drink down on this table while her friend turns up the temperature on the thermostat. Ashley here looks through the salon CDs for music when one of the shelf fixtures pops off the wall. Taking off their clothes, they lay down on the tanning beds and shut the lids as they start jamming out to their music. But they don't realize that the slushy is condensing over a dangerous electrical unit and the circuits begin to smoke. Outside, the door has squeezed out all of the lotion in the bottle and it slams shut, leaving no one in the building to help. The voltage climbs, making the temperature rise, and the brunette begins to realize something's wrong. Meanwhile, Wendy's at home looking through her photos of the night her boyfriend died, and she notices he was posing in front of the ride at the exact moment the cars are coming down, perfectly aligned over his head. She looks through the rest of the photos and finds an overexposed picture of the Valley girls. It looks like they're on fire, and she gets a feeling that something horrible is about to happen. Wendy tries to call them, but this coat rack in the salon falls over, knocking a plant into the shelf, and it breaks off the wall. Landing on her tanning bed, the blonde girl tries to lift up the cover, but the shelf has trapped them inside. The heat begins to boil their skin, and they scream in pain, alerting the receptionist, but he finds that the back door is jammed shut and the front door has been locked from the inside. No one's coming to save them, and the tanning beds burst into flames. That's 2 dead, and there are 8 survivors left. Okay, in all honesty, I'm not even sure this is Death's fault, because everything these girls touch turns to and they both could have avoided dying by simply following the rules. First of all, 2 Valley girls in a room full of dangerous electronics with no supervision is never going to end well, and I wouldn't even trust them with a microwave. Secondly, the receptionist definitely should have known better than to leave these girls to operate all this expensive equipment on their own, but he did warn them before leaving not to take their drinks into the room. They pretended to throw it away and didn't respect this man enough to follow his rules. Now, this wooden plank is not difficult to escape from, and Death took it easy on them here. If it's able to fall into the handles, then it must also be possible to take it out. These beds look like they're about a meter wide, and the shelf here is only sticking in by a couple of inches at most. All you need to do is nudge the shelf into the other girl's tanning bed and you're free. The fact they didn't figure this out is astounding, and all I can say is, at least they died doing what they love, and now they've got smoking hot bodies to show for it. But there is one item the salon could have hung that would have prevented this entire situation. Displate. A high-quality print on metal of the things that you are passionate about is mounted with the help of a magnet with no additional tools. It's easy to put up, and it definitely won't fall down and crush you. There are many cool designs available on the website, and with every display that you buy, you plant one tree. Look good, feel good, and do good while staying alive. You can check them out by clicking the link in the description. And you can also use my discount code that will be activated once you click on the link in the description and add your displays to the cart for 20% off when you buy 1 or 2 and 30% off when you buy 3 or more. The discount is valid until May 29th, so don't miss out on your chance to get your displays. Thank you, Displate, for sponsoring this video. The next day, a funeral is held for the girls and the school has gathered to pay their respects. After the service, Kevin finds Wendy at her boyfriend's grave and walks up to see how she's doing. She tells him that ever since they got on the roller coaster, she's felt a presence stalking her wherever she goes, and has found proof that this feeling isn't just a superstition. She shows him the last photo taken of Abraham Lincoln with a line running through his head in the exact place he was shot, and a photo of the Twin Towers with a plain shadow predating 9/11. The photos she took at the amusement park are giving them clues to how they will all die, and she admits he was right. She had a vision that saved their lives, and now that they've cheated death, a mysterious force is hunting them down one by one. Alright, this is freaky, but we've actually figured out a new death rule here. The last picture you take of someone before they die has a clue in it of what will cause their death. If I were them, I would try to use this to our advantage. Right now, the clues are difficult to find because it could be anything in the photo, so what we need is a pattern. I would gather the survivors and take as many pictures of them as we can in different situations, because if the rule is true, then we will start to find the same clues in every single photo we take, and we will be able to compare the photos to confirm the patterns. With enough pictures, we will know for sure what's going to kill us, where, and how. Leaving the cemetery, Kevin here tells her that death is killing them in the order they would have died if they stayed on the roller coaster, and they realize that would mean that Frankie the camera guy would be next, since he was behind the 2 girls on the ride. They pull over into a drive-thru nearby so they can take another look at the photo. There's nothing that stands out, but that's when the girl remembers Frankie was wearing a mudflap girl necklace that day. This could be the clue that tells them how he's going to die. They pull up to the window to place their order when the drive-thru display suddenly starts glitching out, and death starts taking control. A semi-truck starts backing into their car, trapping them as the radio cycles through channels and begins to play a song. Panicking, the girl turns around and sees a truck with no driver is headed right for them, but they're trapped on all sides and can't open their doors. The kids have no choice but to kick the windshield out and jump out of the car. The truck slams into the vehicle and the engine is sent flying into the driver in front of them, blending his skull into bloody mush. Finding a mudflap girl necklace on the ground, the kids realize that the person who just got killed was Frankie the camera guy. That's another one down, and there are 7 survivors left. Okay, I know this looks bad, but this could have been a lot worse. They escaped with their lives, but they also had a few more options they didn't consider that would have made a difference. I would have tried manipulating the situation to our advantage, and used Death's own rules to do it. Now, they've just figured out that Frankie is going to die next because he was sitting behind the Valley girls on the roller coaster, but they didn't consider rule number 4, which says that you can't die until it's your turn. With this information, they could have put together that this truck is not intended for them at all, and that with a freak accident in the making, Frankie must be nearby. This means the best way out of this situation is to do absolutely nothing. If we know that we're not going to die until it's our turn, then technically, by staying exactly where we are, the death trap would avoid us and head right for Frankie. Now, if they weren't panicking, they would have realized that there were clues about everything that was going to happen. First, they nearly crash into a truck on their way to the drive-thru, and since they know that Frankie's sign is a mudflap girl, they should have considered this a warning. Next, the drive-in sign told them that they have no control over what's about to happen. Lastly, the song that played on the radio is called Turn Around, Look at Me. This is word for word all they needed to say to save this guy from imminent death. Now, personally, I would have taken the more direct approach here and rammed into his car to get his attention. He would have turned around mad as hell and would see the truck headed straight for him. Death was giving them all the answers, and instead of listening, they panicked and this guy died. Together, they go to Wendy's house to find out where everyone was sitting on the roller coaster, but there were 2 other kids on the ride and they have no idea who they are. These photos confirm the order everyone will die in, and they need to get to the next student before time runs out. That's when Kevin here realizes that the jock is going to die next at a football training camp for the state's team, the Sultans. She reminds him there are pictures of them at the amusement park too, but he doesn't want to see how he dies. The thought terrifies him and he refuses to look at his photo. Okay, we should definitely look at our own photos. These pictures are a one-time only get-out-of-death-free card, and if you're not willing to use them, then you're an idiot. But there is a logical reason to wait before looking. These pictures have become like a Schrodinger's cat experiment, because as soon as they look at the photo, it will lock in the cause of death. That's not necessarily a good thing, because if we know how someone else dies and intervene in death's design by saving someone's life, then you might not die in the same way because you've altered the future. This makes your own photo useless because it will no longer give you clues for how you're going to die, but rather for how you were going to die. It would be the smarter move to save Lewis first and then look at the pictures because you'll have a more accurate idea of how death will try to kill you under the new circumstances. The next day, they try to convince Lewis here that he's going to die next, and the guy thinks they've gone crazy, but the girl sees that all the signs are there. There are 2 swords hanging from a plaque above and a stuffed bear standing nearby, both hints that were in the jock's photo. Behind them, a guy breaks off a bear claw that hits another weightlifter in the eye. He drops his barbell and the impact knocks the swords loose. They swing down and slice through the cables on Lewis's machine, but nothing happens. He brags that death can't touch him, and the jock does one last victory rep, but the weights fold down and crush his head. That's 4 dead, and now there are 6 survivors left. Okay, if there's anybody you don't want to taunt, it's death. I can understand why Lewis here would be skeptical, because the crap that's coming out of their mouths is absolutely insane. Unfortunately, it also happens to be true. If I were him, I would ignore them as well. But that attitude would change really quickly if I witnessed a chain of events that goes from a bear's toenail to swords swinging down and nearly missing my head. It would be enough for me to believe them, and I would thank my lucky stars that I survived. Now, even if he doesn't believe us, there is one thing we could try in order to save his life. If he insists on working out, we can goad him into a safer workout routine. I would tell him that he's a fucking weak-ass and challenge him to every bodyweight exercise there is. I'm obviously not going to beat him at any, but it might be enough to trick him into working out away from the dangerous machines and weighted plates, and in a safer area of the gym. That night, they visit the hardware store and warn the goth kids that they're going to die next. Neither of them believe their theory and make fun of them for thinking that death is a conscious being and is hunting everyone down. Distracted, he bumps a cardboard box off a shelf and it lands on a forklift in the other aisle. Cleaning up, his girlfriend unknowingly knocks a length of chain loose and unravels, catching a hook that turns the ignition of the keys in the forklift. The vehicle accelerates forward, and Death is already here to set up his next trap. The goth kid mentions that if Death really is hunting them down in a specific order, then the last person to be targeted could save everyone by sacrificing themselves. This would break the pattern and put an end to Death's design, but nobody is willing to test the theory. Okay, this is an interesting idea, because if it's true, then one girl's death could have saved 9 other lives from the beginning. Now, it's very hard to convince someone to sacrifice themselves on just a hunch, but you could still test the theory by killing them yourself. If there was only one person standing in the way of me and 8 others staying alive, then it's definitely worth killing that person for the greater good. If the last person dies before anyone else, it goes against the order we were supposed to die in. This is a way we could force Death to bend his own rules, and maybe it will break his master plan enough to set us free. Either the last person on the list is completely invincible and can't die until all the others die first, or they can die, which will break Death's pattern. Either way, I would gladly trade a life for this information, as long as it's not my own. Wendy here checks the photo again to see if she missed something and realizes that the goth kid is about to get impaled by these stakes. The forklift suddenly rams into this wall, which knocks everything off the shelves. The girl pushes the kid out of the way and saves his life as everything comes tumbling down. She's just intervened in Death's plan, and now it has skipped to the next person in line. The goth girl is thrown back and slams her head into a fully loaded nail gun, turning her face into a human pincushion. All of her friends watch in horror as it becomes undeniably clear that they're all one step closer to death, and now there are 5 survivors remaining. Okay, it's not the best timing, but this is when I would be saying I told you so. Earlier, these kids actually admitted that they didn't know who would be killed first between the two of them. If they really wanted to protect these guys, all this effort trying to convince them that their lives are in danger is a massive waste of time, and they did a piss poor job of it. If it's me, I would be coming in here demanding that they should come with me if they want to live. Honestly, I'll hurt them if I have to, and if it escalates into a full-on hostage situation, that's fine with me too. I'm not doing any of this for them, I'm doing it to save my own life. I would rather lock them in a cage against their will where there is no possible way to die, because the longer I keep them alive, the longer I keep myself alive, and that's all that matters right now. Exhausted, Wendy returns home and falls asleep at her desk, but her sister comes in and wakes her up from her nap to take back her bracelet. She leaves the room, but Wendy suddenly realizes something important. She opens one of the pictures on the roller coaster and recognizes the bracelet of one of the unknown passengers. It was her sister on the ride this whole time. She tries to call her, but is sent straight to voicemail and leaves her a message. She then phones Kevin, telling him that her sister and her friend are next on Death's list. She's about to leave for the Tricentennial Fair to warn them, and he reminds her that they'll be next if they don't save her sister. Kevin tells her it's now the right time to look at their death photos for clues. Checking the computer, she looks at his picture and finds one of him squinting from a bright light. He asks if it looks like a firework went off in his face, and she confirms it does. They hang up as Kevin nervously watches the fairground staff load these huge mortars for the fireworks show and realizes his time has come. Okay, this guy should already be running for his life. If you want to stay alive, you're going to need as much control over your environment as possible, and this fair is just about the worst place to do that. There are too many people doing dangerous things, and it creates too many unpredictable outcomes for you to avoid. But the problem is, we can't just hop in a car and drive away. We know that the picture is of a bright light flashing in his face moments before his death. If we drive out of here, then instead of fireworks being the most likely sign, it could easily change to a car's headlights. It's turning dark, and we could be killed in a head-on collision, which statistically is way more likely than dying by fireworks. So staying at the fair might actually be the safer bet. Kevin's entire life depends on the sister, so instead of waiting for our turn to die, we should take matters into our own hands and kidnap her. Normally this wouldn't be a viable strategy, but he has a huge advantage because he's a security guard. It's cold-blooded, but knocking her out and dragging her to an empty area of the park is the safest thing he can do, and if anyone saw it, I would say she's passed out drunk. She'll be rightfully upset when she wakes up, but we'll both be alive and she can thank us later. Kevin here is getting nervous as he sees danger everywhere he turns. The tall flame of a barbecue, the sharpened sword of a reenactor, and Ben Franklin flying a key with his kite, hoping for a lightning bolt to strike. Any one of these could kill him, but he has no idea how. He finally spots Wendy's sister with her friends and makes his way over to her. Approaching the girls, he tells them their lives are in danger and they need to come with him, but the situation gets out of hand and the sister storms away. The fireworks are about to begin and the soldiers leave their post, but the cannon rammer falls over, knocks a cannonball loose, and rolls into a wooden post holding up the fireworks launcher. Okay, this is not a good sign, and it means death is near. But the problem is, this girl is not interested in anything we have to say, and if we don't want to kidnap her, then we should at least be doing everything in our power to make sure we aren't going to die while we're here. Right now, they think he's going to be killed by fireworks, and the only way we could get a handle on this situation is by controlling it as much as humanly possible. As counterintuitive as it may sound, I would head straight for the fireworks to try and control everything that comes near it. We could remove the fuses or the ammunition or wet them so they can't spark and go off. Now, by doing this, it's just as likely that the method changes to something else as a result. By sabotaging the fireworks, Death might decide to use the barbecue instead, and that would be a lot more difficult to control because it's a manned station and would be harder to interfere with. But the best hope we have is to eliminate as many of the possible sources of death as we can without getting caught, and try to find the sister so we can all leave. Wendy finally arrives at the fair and looks for both Kevin and her sister in the crowd, but can't find them. Suddenly, the lights go out and the show begins. That's when these two kids set everything into motion. They light some firecrackers that go off near a horse and scare it into running loose through the fairgrounds, dragging a fence post with it. Wendy spots her sister with Kevin, but suddenly remembers that there was a merry-go-round in the background of her photo, and now a horse is racing towards them. She yells to look out, and Kevin pushes the girl out of the way, but the fence post wraps around her neck. She's dragged across the fairgrounds and is seconds away from sliding into the gun carriage, but Kevin here steals a sword, cutting the rope just before she gets impaled. Okay, Kevin screwed up here big time. This girl did not appreciate that they were trying to save her life and has been disrespectful every single chance she got. When we look at the value of a life, we should also consider how much society benefits from that life. And my assessment here is that this girl is better off dead. People will miss her, but she's a terrible role model to her friends, and her death will shock them into being better people. If good people die and bad people live, it teaches us all that our actions don't have consequences. This is the one time I'm on Death's side here, and I think we should just support his decision. Her sister is freaking out, but Wendy isn't wasting any time. She demands to know who is sitting next to her on the roller coaster because they're about to die. Another firework goes off and the horse gets startled, ripping the flagpole into the air and impaling her friend right in front of them. Now that 6 people are dead, there are 4 survivors remaining, and Wendy and Kevin here are next on Death's hit list. Suddenly, Kevin gets kicked by the horse into a table, sending a shish kebab flying to the gas line of a propane tank. It explodes into a fireball, but Wendy saves him at the last minute. They've skipped the death order again, and now Wendy is next. She spots the goth kid coming for revenge, and that's when she figures out the clue from her death photo. She remembers that his last name, McKinley, is the same name as her school, and that's the shirt she was wearing in the picture. Helping her friend off the ground, they try to run away, but the goth kid stops them. She begs him to stay away, but when she says this, he realizes that he's the cause of her death. Suddenly, Wendy hears the launcher behind them fall to the ground, and she pulls her friends down as the fireworks fly past them, hitting the cherry picker behind him. The kid takes one last moment to gloat, but the hydraulic piston fails, and the arm swings down, splattering the kid flat on the ground. He wanted to get Wendy killed, but by stopping her, he intervened in her death and saved her life. That's 7 down and 3 survivors remaining. 5 months later, and the death cycle has stopped. Wendy is taking a subway with her friends and is thankful to be alive. That's when she suddenly hears a busker playing Turn Around, Look at Me, the same song that played on the radio at the drive-thru, and realizes that Dev's plan isn't over. Sitting down, she sees in a mirror's reflection that the subway car number is 180 and tries to get off at the next stop but gets blocked by all the boarding passengers. That's when she runs into her sister, distracting her away from the closing doors, sealing them inside. They sit down, and she tells her that she's still paranoid they're still going to die in freak accidents, but their sister assures her that it's over and nothing bad will happen. She lets it go and takes her to meet her friends, but that's when they spot Kevin sitting in the subway car and realize that this is no coincidence. Death has brought them all together and is going to take them all out. Further down the tracks, a rat triggers the wiring to switch the rail line, and the train hits it, crashing through the tunnels. Wendy's sister gets hit by a loose wheel, and the train tips onto its side, throwing Kevin against the wall. The window cracks beneath him and he falls out, getting ripped to shreds. The train finally comes to a screeching halt, and the only survivor is Wendy here with a broken leg, and there's no one alive to help. That's when she sees another train racing towards her and she screams in terror. But just as it crashes into her, she's suddenly back on the train moments before the accident happens. Looking at her expression, Kevin here realizes she just had a premonition and they all panic. He pulls down on the emergency brake and the sisters try to force open the doors, but the train won't stop. And Death finally gets his revenge. Don't forget to use the link in the description to get your own disc plates, like this great one here of Final Destination. But what do you think? How would you beat Final Destination 3? Let me know with a comment down below. Thank you so much for watching, leave a like and subscribe, and check out the How to Beat playlist for more videos like this. Until next time, have a damn good day.